Good day, welcome to Plain Talk. This is a Plain Talk on location. We had to pick up all of the equipment and head down to Shugwarnas. But the person I'm interviewing, having a conversation with today, I think he's worth the effort. People are going to want this information. The trade-off is we're not in our office, in our studio. So the acoustics not going to be perfect. If there are any difficulties with the audio, because we're getting some in the setup, we apologize. Hopefully this is not the last of these conversations. But the gentleman has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and it's time that we tapped into it, because we can't just keep focused on what's wrong if we don't start having a conversation about what could be right. And I'm here with Mr. Basdeo Panday, former Prime Minister, former trade union leader, opposition leader, attorney,
former opposition,
actor,
former actor,
he is head of the Basdeo Panday Foundation and involved in the Patriotic Front.
To the extent that I have offered Michaela Panday my services as her advisor.
Do you not think, though, that your services as advisor cast too big a shadow over her? She is a powerhouse in her own right, but she will forever be Basdeo Panday's daughter.
That is the tragedy of the siblings of someone who has made some impact upon the society.
Correct.
She simply will have to live with it.
Right.
But when I tell her that, I said, don't I cast a shadow over you? She says, no, I think you cast a light.
You see, I think she's your number one fan. So I don't think she will ever see that for what it is. But that's not a bad thing. What you all do is entirely your call. But the purpose of this conversation today, I wanted to tap into your memory. I wanted to tap into your experience. I wanted to get some answers to questions that you are uniquely poised to answer.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to say, getting the ball rolling? The lead off, anything you want to ask? Anything? Because it's a conversation, it's not an interview.
Yes, shoot from both hips.
Both hips, all four hands. Okay, so we say nothing works in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you disagree?
No, I don't think that is completely true. Lots of things don't work. But there are other things that work among simple people.
I'm talking about specifically anything that is operated under government or state apparatus, nothing works.
By and large, you are correct. Most of the state enterprises do not function properly. Either they are short on delivery of services, or otherwise they are spending money for which they cannot account, and that sort of thing. So generally, I think you're right.
Is Trinidad a victim of politics?
Is a victim?
Is Trinidad a victim of its politics? Trinidad and Tobago, when we look at it, and you know this from, you have a lot more experience than I do, the promise of this place, it could be so much more.
I think all countries are victims of their politics, good or bad. And yes, you're right. When the country was made independent, there were a lot of promises of things going right and so on. But as I have argued before, I believe that the Constitution is the greatest constraint to our development.
Tell me why.
The reason is because of the system of first past the post. In a country that is ethnically, racially divided, what the Constitution has produced is two political parties, one with an Indo-Trinidadian base and the other with an Afro-Trinidadian base. And every election is fought, therefore, on racial lines and not really on any serious discussion.
But I just want to ask you this, right? Because people say that as if it is a unique experience of Trinidad and Tobago. But all of the former colonies, Canada, America, I mean, United States of America changed from Westminster system, and that saved them. But all the former colonies, I mean, you look to Africa, all of the countries, they're divided by, when you look at Rwanda, you could tell a Hutu from a Tutsi. When you look at India and Pakistan, two nations now divided by religion, it seems that the colonial masters, their division of people carried on long after the empire was gone. And that Trinidad and Tobago was divided ethnically because the biggest blocks that they could have separated was the Indo-Trinbagonians, the Afro-Trinbagonians. Why haven't we been able to get past that?
Exactly because of the Constitution. Because you see, and you were talking about other countries and so on. That is the problem. We are not other countries. We are peculiar in the way our population is divided. We have adopted a system that is totally inadequate and irrelevant to us. We should have had a constitution that deals with us as Trinidadians, Tobagonians. Not think of it worked in England. It worked in England because we are not Englishmen. And it works in America because we are not Americans. We have Trinidadians and Tobagonians, and we must have a system, and we must accept the fact that it is a country that when it says first past the post in a racially, physically divided society, you're going to have two racial blocks, and that has to be broken.
But we broke it in 1986. When the NAR won the election,
we didn't break it.
But you got past it, and then we had the opportunity of 33-3. We had massive control of the parliament.
Yeah.
Why wasn't that? People want to know this because it took a ganging up of everybody else to break the stranglehold the PNM had on the government.
I think you've used the right word, ganging up.
But what I'm saying is, everybody involved, especially at the leadership level at that time, had to know that ethnic, racially divided, polarized politics was our problem.
They were ganging up to remove the PNM.
So they had no plan after?
Of course not. They had no concept of what we will do with the,
Once the PNM was
with the 33-3 majority.
It was only single-minded purpose.
Because what we ought to do with the 33-3 majority was to amend the Constitution.
Undo and redo.
There are only three leaders in the history of Trinidad and Tobago who had the necessary majority to amend the Constitution. Dr. Eric Williams, Mr. A.N.R. Robinson, and Kamala Basdeo. And neither of them wanted constitutional change. That is the difficulty we had. We ganged up to remove the PNM, not ganged up to run the country properly.
Agreed. But people hearing you say that would ask a question. Did you raise this when you were Prime Minister?
The objective was to move the PNM. There had been
No, forget about the NR. When you were Prime Minister.
Oh, I see. You mean constitutional reform?
Was this a front burner issue? And I'm not trying to pin this on you.
No.
I'm just saying that it's obviously a problem. Why has no Prime Minister of any kind made it a front burner issue?
Because you need a 3/5 and 2/3 majority in the parliament to have constitutional reform. I remember raising the matter with Mr. Manning. Mr. Manning said that Dr. Williams said that proportional representation is a dagger aimed at the heart of the PNM. I'm sure you will recall that. I raised it with Mr. Chambers when he was Prime Minister. And I told him, why don't we form a national front government? And he said, okay.
What happened to that? And what happened?
He said, okay, he'll go back and talk to his men. I met him later and he said, he talked to his men. And they asked him if he was mad. And I said, why? He said they were saying, you have power and you want to share power. You must be mad.
What I look at going on in Trinidad and Tobago, and what I've observed in my time, is that the PNM has used every chance that is gotten to further entrench themselves. And I was asking you before we started recording, a lot of the PNM constituencies that are considered die-hard constituencies now are only die-hard constituencies because public funds have been taken and used for political purposes.
Yes.
All of the alphabet soups of handouts, the 80% of transfers and subsidies that the URP, the CPEF, and the HTC.
I love the one where they hand out bulbs when the people have no electricity.
No bulbs yet.
And they handed out water tanks without water. But anyway, that's a political culture.
But the HDC has not been in the business of building houses for the homeless. The HDC has been in the business of giving fat cat contracts to financiers to build overpriced properties to make massive profits and to put party members or voters in specific constituencies. How is that not a crime?
It is not a crime because there's no law that says it is a crime. And there's no political party that has been in power to pass such a law because it would need constitutional changes and so on. Even if such a law was passed, it would not be implemented because the implementers are the ones who want to keep the system there.
Misbehaving in public office.
Yes.
And the integrity in public life act. You're responsible for the integrity in public life
Yes.
act. Yes? Why doesn't the Integrity in Public Life Act have the teeth to go after these people?
That was an experiment, as I'm sure you would realize, that we introduced it. And I suppose as we had progressed, we would have seen the shortcomings, what is necessary to add to it and so on. Unfortunately, we were not there long enough.
The Integrity Commission sends lists to the Director of Public Prosecutions of people in breach of the Integrity in Public Life Act. There is nothing to compel the DPP to act on the list.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of the exercise?
The fact that we have the commission was a good one. The point of the exercise is the need for changing the law, adding to the act, changing the law.
No, what's the point of the exercise now? Today, the Integrity Commission sends a list to the DPP, and there is nothing to compel the DPP to take action. What's the point of that exercise?
Very little point. I agree with you.
So that's one of the things that we could say nothing works in this country, because nothing works. Nothing works. When the public looks at politicians, they look at politicians now with disdain. The public jaded. If you go to talk to people about politics, they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear because they believe that the people who have had the power to change things didn't change it. A PNM spokesperson told the chairman of our party today that the reason Maxi Coffee benefited from $3 million medical that Keith Rowley didn't have the authority to spend on him and Maxi Coffee didn't have the entitlement to receive. The reason that that criminal act was allowed to take place and nobody prosecutes is because rank has privileges. Because rank comes with privileges. There are benefits to being in government that you could steal public funds and misuse it. And
rank comes with privileges. Privileges come with rank. Rank comes with power. And power comes with the Constitution.
We live in a country where the average person, the voter, the law-abiding taxpayer, has no faith in any office of state, not law enforcement, not the administration of justice. We do not believe that the national pie is shared equitably. No one thinks that the best and the brightest is who gets elected to office. We have a situation where 41 people meet in the parliament, and to the public, all they see is a continuous erosion of their benefits, their civil rights and civil liberties, their human rights and civil liberties. And they do not have anybody to turn to for redress. The President of the Republic serves no purpose.
I'm glad you agree with me that the Constitution needs to be reformed, because exactly what you are telling me is that there is no mechanism for keeping the government under control. Because the way the Constitution is formed is that the Prime Minister shall be the leader of the party that wins the majority. It immediately gives the government control of the Parliament in a democracy.
But
the people control the Parliament.
But the same Constitution doesn't recognize political parties. In Trinidad and Tobago, every time you form a political party, that's an illegal act. There is no such thing. The Ministry of Legal Affairs doesn't know what's a political party.
Forgive me, I may be wrong. Doesn't the Constitution says that the Prime Minister shall be the leader of the political party that wins the majority?
The member that commands the majority. The only time the Constitution mentions a political party is an asterisk in how to remove an MP that Kamala used against Herbert Warner.
Okay, forgive me, because
Why has no government ever legitimized political parties? You cannot go and form Patriotic Front.
Why can't you?
It cannot be. There's no legal entity called a political party.
Of course there is.
What is that entity?
That legal entity derives its recognition from the Elections and Boundaries Commission.
Only Elections and Boundaries Commission, and all they could do is recognize you and give you a symbol.
Yeah.
But there is no way for anybody to write a check to a political party. So you have to form a non-profit organization or some other instrument to end run, because your actual political party can't exist.
I disagree, but I may be wrong.
No, but I'm asking you, can you register a political party as a legal entity?
You can open a bank account in the name of a political party.
Trading as. But it has to be a person.
Anyway, you are the businessman. You're the businessman.
No, it's just we've been researching all of these things. And these are the questions that members, people who've been frustrated with the mismanagement and the fact that the country fails. Yet we've had governments for 57 years. And to them, they want to understand what's 2/3 and 3/5. When Faris Al-Rawi as the Attorney General, with neither, is undermining the public's human rights and civil liberties every day. Without those things, he's passing a spy bill now that Wayne Sturge is telling the nation that is going to negatively impact on the country. There's nobody to turn to. I'm asking you this.
There is nobody and nothing. Not only nobody. There is nobody and nothing to challenge it, because the Constitution does not contain a mechanism such as the American Senate Investigating Committee. The American Senate Investigating Committee can call a minister in public under the glare of television and asks him questions about his ministry. That is because the Parliament is separate from the ministry. The government is not part of the legislature. The executive and the legislature must be separated. Montesquieu spoke about that.
But we've been watching this take place in Trinidad and Tobago for 57 years.
Yes.
We've known this is the problem. That a member of parliament who is a minister cannot serve both. Usually the constituents are the ones to suffer.
You mean he physically cannot, but he legally does.
Nobody physically can.
I agree with you.
And that we should separate the legislature from the
Exactly.
executive.
No minister should be a member of parliament. He shouldn't have a constituency to administer to. What you need is proportional representation.
But do you think, and we're going to get off the politics for a bit, but do you think that Trinidad and Tobago will ever be able to get out of its own way, divided as we are racially? There are a large demographic, about 30% of people, who think they're above it all. They're above the process. They don't vote. They say with pride that they don't vote, not understanding that their failure to vote compounds the problems that they tolerate in this country. Do you think that we will ever get to a place where the people of Trinidad and Tobago could trust again? Because it took some trust for the NAR and it took some trust for the People's Partnership construct. Do you think that people will ever be able to trust again, to get together in such sufficient numbers that they could act cohesively politically before we end up with Columns riot?
It is my view that 1/3 of the population want neither the PNM nor the UNC. That 1/3 of the population, some of them don't vote at all, and some of them vote for one or the other. They vote for the lesser corrupt party or the lesser whatever party, the evil party, a lesser evil party, and so on. But because they believe wrongly that they'd be wasting their vote, or if they don't vote. But if you can get that middle 1/3 that I talk about and unite them, you can at least get a third voice in the parliament that begins to raise the issues that the other people do not raise. And that's why I have been suggesting, well, as you know, small parties, history has shown that they will not. And there's a series of reasons for that, is that people think they're wasting their vote, they don't think they will win, and so on and so forth. If the small parties can unite and contest the elections under a single banner, it gives the people confidence that they could win. And therefore those who are not voting, that 1/3 will vote for them.
Yes,
it is my view. I may be wrong.
You're not wrong. And I agree. We say the same things where that third is concerned. I think it's a little more. And that's our demographic. That's who we target. We've said to the PNM and the UNC apologists that speak about splitting the votes, we say keep your votes.
Exactly.
We're not interested in your votes.
Exactly.
If the people who support the UNC choose to continue to support the UNC after everything they've
That's
seen,
their right.
That's their right.
And,
That's their right.
and proportional representation will not affect that
That's
right.
their right. As you say, that's their right. But to the public, that same third of the people, I've been asking a question for a while, and I wanted to ask this to you. Who owns our pitch lake?
I don't know.
You were a former Prime Minister. Did the Pitch Lake Asphalt Company come to you, to the Parliament, to the Minister of Finance?
It would have reported to the minister under whose portfolio it fell. I would not be able to say offhand which ministry that would have been.
The country believes either Manning or Kamla sold the Pitch Lake to the Chinese. Such a thing possible, without us knowing?
Well, it seems that the only person with the resources to investigate that is yourself.
With the resources to investigate. I'll stick up in there.
No,
I know.
Seriously.
I know.
We have a valuable resource like
The Pitch Lake.
And am I entitled to tell you a little story?
You go ahead.
Okay. When I was Prime Minister, I instructed the Minister of Works that when he's giving a contract to build roads in Trinidad and Tobago, he must put in a stipulation in that contract that they build the roads with Trinidad Pitch Lake, using Trinidad Pitch Lake. So the contract went out. And there was only one company with the machinery that could do that. And another company sued the government, sued the ministry for discrimination, that they were discriminating and so on. And the court granted an injunction against the Minister of Works. And you know what I did? I went to the cabinet and got the money which were allocated to the Minister of Works for that job, to the Minister of Tourism, I think, and built the roads. We were not entitled to build the roads. So that is the kind of problem you face. But if you have a different system of government, that wouldn't be necessary. And as a matter of fact, we built a lot of roads because of that diversion of strategy.
The only reason that I and others have gotten into politics is because we believe that there is nobody that's really asking the questions the public wants to ask.
There are lots of people asking the questions.
There's
nobody answering them.
Well, I think that we need to give the people a platform that they could unite behind and trust. I want to ask you this. Justice Scott Commission of Inquiry into the Drug Trade. That report that became known as the Scott Drug Report, what was wrong with it that it could not be laid in the Parliament?
I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember why it was.
So,
I think it may have been, but I'm subject to correction. That
were you in the Parliament then?
Was
in
it
the 80s?
in the 80s? No. Well, I was in Parliament, but I've been in Parliament almost forever, actually. But I think it was because allegations were made against persons without concrete evidence, and it would therefore cast aspersion upon them without the right to answer.
But
think
they
that was
weren't called to answer in the Commission of Inquiry?
I don't know how it was conducted.
But it generated a significant amount of interest among the public.
It certainly did.
It's done that for the past 40 years.
Yeah.
Why has no government properly done a commission of inquiry into the drug trade in Trinidad and Tobago, knowing that we've had La Tinta, we've had Monas, we've had $600 million on Monas, we had $1 billion on a yacht on its way to Spain, they just held $200 million going to the Philippines, $400 million for Norfolk, Virginia, how much ever millions for Canada. Why haven't any government commissioned a proper inquiry into the drug trade in Trinidad and Tobago?
I think there are several reasons. And the basic reason, I think, is because the drug trade provides what is called an underground economy. And Trinidad has two economies. Trinidad and Tobago has two economies, an official economy and an underground economy. And when they say the country is in recession, they are talking about the
official economy.
But they are ignoring the underground economy, which sustains the economy.
But the underground economy has allowed people to become fabulously wealthy and buy up Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
There are a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago that own large chunks of Trinidad and Tobago.
I agree.
Largely because of the proceeds from the drug trade.
Well,
Trinidad now, as a country, is known worldwide as a narco pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. And they give all sorts of reasons that we are a transit point, we are near to the end of the Orinoco River.
The Drug Enforcement Agency of the United States put a gentleman on a BP platform and he said, I don't know if it was in jest, that more marine craft passed between the South American mainland and Trinidad at night than were involved in the Normandy landing.
I would not be surprised because of our proximity to Venezuela. We are
so then why is the Coast Guard not in the South?
Why is anything not working in Trinidad and Tobago? You raised the point yourself.
No, but I'm asking you this because you were Prime Minister. And I'm asking you this because you've been head of the National Security Council, and I'm asking you this, and you don't have to answer me, but I'm saying
I will.
Trinidadians need to know, and they're expecting me to ask because I'm raising these issues constantly.
Okay.
Trinidad is a narco state. We launder a lot of money in this country that cannot be accounted for. There are businesses in Trinidad and Tobago who blew up in quick time without being able to demonstrate the capacity to get to the size that they did. If ever given an opportunity to be in government, I promise a commission of inquiry into the drug trade in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to ask, why weren't you motivated to do the same?
Oh, but I did. I installed radar around the four corners of Trinidad, including Tobago. And we set up called a command center. The command center was under the control of a gentleman by the name of Bisnath Baraj, brilliant guy. And one day he took me in, and I myself saw on a radar screen blips indicating vessels coming into Trinidad. Now the next step, of course, is the Coast Guard and so on,
Interdiction, yeah.
come in and that sort of thing. So we tried, given the resources, but don't forget, oil at that time
$9
was floating between 9 and 15 and so on.
Yeah.
So that we did what the finances allowed us to do, but we did put these radar systems around the country.
Okay. So I'm going to say then that you did what you were reliably confident, believing was the best advice you were being given.
And the one we can afford.
And the one
That's very important.
So we were literally drowning in drugs and couldn't afford to fight it.
That's right, because it was the underground economy.
Would you say that the corruptive power of drug money is what destroyed the machinery of state in this country? That untraceable money.
It had a lot to do with it. It had a lot to do with the giving of bribes and the accepting of bribes and so on, and corrupting the society all to a very, very wide extent.
As a Prime Minister, didn't you, looking back at your time as Prime Minister, if you had to do it again, now that you know the things that you know, especially about the drug trade, would you have done it differently?
Oh, certainly. Times change. The objective situation is changing all the time, and you don't apply something you applied 10, 15 years ago to the modern circumstances because the objective situation has changed. So yeah, what you've got to do is to look at the present circumstances, look at the present objective situation, and develop a plan based on that. So it will be a plan, a new plan, knowing what to do given the circumstances.
But there were countries in the world at the time that were securing themselves. The United States created an embargo against Cuba in the 60s, where the trapped Cuba.
I don't think that had anything to do with drugs.
No, but it trapped Cuba in the 60s. And it's only recently that we were allowed to see inside of Cuba, and it's like the land that time forgot. All their cars and all their stereos and their equipment is all dated back to the embargo.
And that's because of the
ability to secure a country that's about 20 times the size of Trinidad and Tobago. Why couldn't we? And that one point, I think, will fuel our violent crime taking place on the ground now. That human resource, those juvenile delinquents willing to throw themselves into bullets are doing that because they see and know what the rest of us blink away and pretend doesn't exist. That there is a lot of crime in Trinidad and Tobago at the highest level. There's white collar crime, there's corruption, and there's drug trafficking on a global scale. How do we get the average person to believe that they should be law abiding when those with the most authority aren't?
And you answer the question in your question. You get the large majority of people to be law-abiding by being law-abiding yourself. That is
government.
Of course. So you answer the question. But in Trinidad, if they believe, wrongly or rightly, that the government is corrupt, they believe they have a right to corruption. If they believe that the government is not working, the lazy and so on, they believe they have a right not to work. So you answer the question.
Oil was between $9 and $15 a barrel when you were Prime Minister. Singapore, a lot of people have discovered Singapore of late. Singapore has a GDP of $322 billion US a year. They don't have oil and gas. They have the size of Trinidad and Tobago. Our GDP hovers around 22 billion. Why wasn't anything done to diversify the economy, especially after the experience of the 80s when we were part of the global recession, not this made-up recession we just experienced, but the global recession of the 80s that taught the rest of the world why the king of Saudi Arabia was able to say if oil reached $1, it wouldn't matter to their economy. Why didn't we diversify our economy? Why that wasn't also a front burner issue?
I think because of the policy of the ruling party. If I recall rightly, When the steel mill was being opened, Dr. Eric Williams made a speech in which he said that why grow tomatoes when we can import tomatoes cheaper than we can grow it? All we need is the money from oil. And instead of agriculture, you'll see steel mills and so on going all over the country and that sort of thing. Now, that was the philosophy. So the philosophy was, you don't deal with agriculture. You use your energy resources to buy what you want. That was a totally wrong philosophy. So you don't have to diversify if you have oil, but you diversify.
But we diversified into steel and we lost money every day. We lost $1 million a day with ISPAT. And then Metal was able to come and buy the same company for a song, fire the management, and become one of the richest men in the world just by properly managing our steel mill. So it proved that the mill wasn't the problem, that the management was. Trinidad and Tobago, by the time you became Prime Minister, was diversification of the economy a front burner issue for you?
First of all, let me answer the other one you were raising. You're totally right. The problem in the country is management. If we manage our resources, then where we try to diversify will become profitable and manageable and so on. But we can't diversify the economy because you see appointments are made to any organization on the basis of cronyism, party politics, ethnicity, and so on and so forth.
By the way,
once you appoint someone on that basis and he goes to work, the boss can't tell him nothing, you know. Because he will say, I didn't come here because of you, I come here because of minister, so and so, you know. So he cannot manage. So once you don't appoint on the basis of a meritocracy, there can be no management because the manager can't manage.
So your government wasn't in control of the country?
We were.
When you were Prime Minister,
Yeah.
your government wasn't in control of the apparatus of state?
Yeah.
Was it?
Well,
Were you in control?
we were control of the state. I'm not sure the apparatus of state.
I remember you said once, I don't know if it was in jest, that you thought the Prime Minister had power.
Yeah.
Remember that statement?
Of course.
I know that our country, nothing works because it is corrupted by humans that are part of a grand conspiracy who see themselves not as servant to Trinidad and Tobago, but to the cult that they belong to, either side. As Prime Minister, did you not think to break all of it and start it over?
You know something? Yes. And it started with the dependency syndrome. You know why crime is so high today in certain quarters? It is because previous governments developed what is called a dependency syndrome. And when you develop this dependency syndrome, the persons who are able to live without having to work do not develop skills, they do not develop work ethic, they don't develop anything, but they have a lot of wives and children all over the place. Now, once you have money to feed that, it's okay. But when there is no money, as there is now, there are guys with not only one wife, several wives, several children, and some grand, who can't feed them. Now, what are they going to do when they hear their children crying for food? The answer is robbery. And they hit the softest targets first. And that is one of the basic things. So you know what we did? To deal with crime. You can't deal with crime in one sentence. To deal with crime, we realized that you had to have investments. Sure, as a businessman, you would agree with that. Now, you know what we did? I made a tour of the eastern states of the United States, visiting every chamber of commerce with a group of businessmen, in which we were telling them what Trinidad had to offer. I remember developing a rather witty statement. I said, formerly, telling the businessman, formerly when you come to Trinidad, you'd be met with red tape. When you come now, you'll be met with a red carpet. The idea is while we were attracting industries, we realized that if the industries come, you would need people to work in them. So we began a series of training programs, a series of them. So that what happened was, as the industries came in, I don't want to go into detail, but surely you remember the welding scheme that we had set up, where almost all of them are working for oil companies all over the world. So that when the industries began coming in, there were workers who were trained to fill the industries. You know, we brought unemployment down from 18 to 10% in that short period of time. And crime to the lowest it has been for 20 years. In 1997.
I know that without a commission, without a state of emergency, you were able to bring crime down. And I know that you did do some magic with the price of, considering the price of oil. But then your entire success is blighted by Piarco Airport. And I don't want to get into that conversation.
I want to get into it.
I wasn't going to raise that as an issue, but I want to say that even that...
You have given me a tremendous opportunity to clear the air. If you recall about the airport, we had the ministry set up a team. They gave some contracts out to begin the work on the airport. And Mr. Manning came to Parliament one day and said that there was so much corruption taking place. They had bought a door, a window or something for $87,000. And I said, really? We withdraw every single contract. And we handed over the project to NIPDEC. NIPDEC built the airport. We were responsible for it, but NIPDEC being the airport. So I do not know what corruption can be attached to the government for the airport.
Okay, but wait. Do you see, though, to the average man who is not the Prime Minister, who NIPDEC answers to?
Well, the average man sometimes don't want the answer.
No,
he
but
want bacchanal.
Yes, they do.
You want rumor.
Indeed.
So you can't teach them.
Let's segue from there for a minute. Coming out of that, and I want to touch on the justice system in Trinidad today, the administration of justice. Coming out of that and all of the charges that were laid, the Director of Public Prosecution spent, I believe, $150 million so far prosecuting the 11 or 13 people. How much time you think has passed?
How much time?
Has passed.
Lots of time.
Since Patrick Manning took over from you, how long ago that was?
Patrick Manning took over from me in
2005 or
2002, 2001 or 2, yeah. At the end of 2001.
Recently, a matter that was before the courts where a guy was charged with breaking into Stevens and Johnson's concluded 25 years later. 25 years later. I know firsthand of a person who was raped in a police station by the ranking police officer. That matter took 17 years. Didn't you think when you were Prime Minister and also a lawyer that our administration of justice did not deliver justice on time and that something needed to be done?
I thought so then and I think so now. But a government, any government, but at least the government I was in charge of, had a given amount of money. And you take that money, you don't go and borrow money all over the place and put in debt to your generation. You take that money and you create a system of priorities. And in that system of priorities, it is what you do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, the most important thing. Most important thing was crime. We dealt with that. Most important thing was unemployment. We dealt with that. Several things. The most important thing was alienating half the population from the other half. We had the Baptist holiday. We had the African Spiritual Park in Maloney. You did what you can do given the resources you have. But I agree with you that the judiciary, something is wrong It's not functioning properly. And it has to. Now, when someone spends 15, 20 years for an offense, they've passed a law now that says you can go and plead guilty, and they will take into account
Time served.
the time served. So you are entitled to go free. That's not the system.
But as a simple thing like putting a timer on civil and criminal matters, 3 years for civil matters, 5 years for criminal matters, put a timer, give the judge the responsibility to manage the case, as it should be. Why can't we do things like that?
When the judge don't manage the case, what do you do?
We have to remove the judge.
Hmm?
Judges who fail to manage their cases should be grounds to remove the judge. Give them another opportunity. They can go and judge Calypso for 2
I
months.
love you when you say should be. Always should be. I love
No,
that.
but listen, I want to say this to
what
you.
should be and what is are two different things.
So are you saying to me then
Yeah.
that the power of the parliament, the cabinet and the government doesn't exist? That as Prime Minister,
As institutions, they nominally exist.
If
As
you
functional
if you had a
institutions, they don't.
if you had a special majority that we think that we need to fix the country, if you had a special majority, could
If I
you-
had it,
it doesn't have to be you, but if a person had it, could they then redevelop Trinidad and Tobago from the constitution up? Could you start over?
first you need, you can only amend the constitution within the constitution. That's the irony of the whole thing, is that you have to have a 2000.
South Africa scrapped and redid theirs.
Yeah, eh?
South Africa scrapped their constitution and redid it.
By force or by law?
I think after apartheid.
But no, that's extremely.
How could you?
Either we do it by force or we do it by law.
When we were granted independence, 1962, that constitution that was written was replaced by a constitution 1976, the Republican Constitution. Neither of those constitutions actively operate the nation state of Trinidad and Tobago to the level that it should.
You know why?
Are we, I just want to ask this, how many of us does it take to say this doesn't work and we are going to redo it? How many of us does it take legally to be able to say, I am not amending it, I am not reforming it, I am going to do a proper constitution that empowers the people and puts the government to work for the citizens? How many of us need to vote ourselves into office for that to be done?
But I just gave you the formula and you refuse to accept it.
What is that?
You have to work with a given situation. You can't work with a theoretical.
1.4 million of us vote for a movement, and the movement says we are going to tear up and do over our constitution. Is that possible?
They're going to vote? Where? How?
Let's say they do.
No, that's important.
But let's say they do.
Because how they going to do it? On Facebook?
If you have the numbers, if you do, can you legitimately, lawfully reinvent Trinidad and Tobago and redo the constitution? Yes or no?
Peacefully? No. The answer is
I'm going to stick up in and come back at this the next time we talk.
Anytime.
What do you think about what I said? Because Trinidad and Tobago was set up to fail.
you don't have a referendum law.
We have a recall law. We have none
You
of the
don't
things
have
that-
a recall
This is the
law.
only country in the world that can't fire somebody who's failing in office. Gordon Draper. Gordon Draper was allowed to miss every session of parliament and draw his salary, and there was nobody to stop him. What was your track record like in parliament?
With respect to my attendance.
Your attendance record?
I attended every meeting that was
Every
called,
single one?
unless I was either out of the country or I was ill.
But to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, they will remember you for two things, and these are the things that you need to address. And I want to tell you this with an abundance of respect, because I have respect for you, and I saw the things that you've done. And
The
everybody,
feeling is mutual, I assure you.
July 27, 1990, your and Patrick Manning's absence from the parliament has never been adequately answered.
Or it has been all the time. People won't listen.
They don't want to accept.
Or they don't want to listen. Wasn't there an inquiry into this matter?
Yes.
Didn't I give evidence before the inquiry? Didn't the inquiries accepted at least my role? I had just had open heart surgery. And I would go to the parliament And at 4:30 o'clock tea time, I would leave and go home, take my medication and so on, and go to bed.
Terrible coincidence, though, because it paired you with an absent Patrick Manning on the worst
But
day.
I was doing it before the coup, and I was doing it after the coup. So I couldn't have anticipated
Mr. Panday,
the coup, so I could begin to
absolutely, but I want to tell you this.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that Trinidadians want more than anything now, Trinidadians, I think the thing they want more than anything right now is brutal honesty. Brutal honesty. I don't think people want us to dress it up.
And are you going to wish it? Of course they want brutal honesty, but you must go one step further. How are you going to get it? By wishing it? You've got to say what we are going to do to bring about your wish. Wishing alone is not important.
People who are going to watch this interview, this conversation, they're going to want a part 2. So we have to stick a pin because it's running on long. But
I don't mind.
there's going to be a part 2. You open to that?
Yeah, of course. Listen.
Thanks a lot. Tom.
My pleasure.
Any closing comments you want? To
No.
Trinidad and Tobago, this is going to be a very, very viewed video. A lot of people are going to view this video because they want to see what we talked about. Is there anything that you want to say to Trinidad and Tobago right now that will motivate them to want to stand up for a better country?
First of all, I'd like to say that I think this conversation was important. It is important because it is informative. It will inform people. Some will accept, some will curse me for it, you curse you for it, and so on. It doesn't matter. But there are those who will see it and will be influenced by it or will agree with it. That is the most important thing I think I see about this, and I'll be willing to repeat this if you so wish.
Absolutely. Again, thanks a lot. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, this is about to shake hand, but
Oh God, since I mean,
but you know how to shake. You know how to
shake
greet one another. You shake feet.
feet.
Yeah.
Well, so those of you who were with us for the duration of this was an in-depth conversation with former Prime Minister Basdeo Panday. We're going to continue this conversation. Thank you for joining us. This has been Plain Talk. Stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.